Hello, hello, and welcome back. Today's episode, I'm Andrew Bailey Brown, and I am your host for the Franchise Millionaire Show, and where we talk all things franchising, business, and success. All right, so today we are going to be talking about my journey, and it's the part two. So if you haven't listened to part one, please go back and listen to that. I basically share my journey from teacher to franchise owner, specifically with Jiffy Lube oil change franchise. And along the way, of course, a few things happened. I talked about my journey from Jamaica to moving to Canada, how I got into teaching, and also I talked about my direct sales journey. That was really instrumental in learning how to sell and then why I decided to invest in multiple franchises. So if you have not listened to that episode, it's like a precursor. It's the part one that will really help you to understand a little bit more about me and why I am in this franchising space. So in part two, we are actually going to be talking about why Jiffy Lube specifically and how did that deal come about and how did I go on to invest in 5 different locations. And a lot of people, when they meet me, they're pretty surprised to find out that's the franchise that I own. I don't know why. Is it the hair? Is it the outfits? So they're always pretty shocked that I am in this industry. So how did we get into it is what we're going to be talking about today. So let's get started. Now, one of the things, as I mentioned in the last episode, is that I've been always testing out entrepreneurship along the way because you have to look at what you're doing your 5 to 12. Yes, the 5 to 12, really important time. With selling jewelry with Silpada, clothing as well. But I started to look at investing in our franchise because my husband and I had discussions about we needed to buy and invest into a company. At the time, he was living in Florida, and we wanted to decide he was going to make the move into Alberta, into Canada. And making that move, we knew we wanted it to be through entrepreneurship. We did not want he didn't want to work for someone else. He had done that working with the airlines as a aircraft mechanic. So he said, you know what, after all these years, I actually want to also have my own business. And I've been running my companies already with the jewelry and with the clothing. And he's also had dabbled in business before, right? Like repairing vehicles, selling cars, doing a few things like that, but nothing to this level. I don't think any of us had done something as big as this, but it all starts off with an idea and manifesting a dream. So we would sit down and have conversations about what could he actually do? What would the move to Canada look like? What are different business opportunities? So we put in the work. Like we didn't, Jiffy Lube didn't just fall into our lap. And some people have that happen for them. That was not the case for us. I would say we were very intentional, meaning that we were having conversations around what's next. How are we going to make this move possible? What are different businesses that we could invest in? So my husband also had invested in another franchise company when he was in Florida and worked with a franchise consultant. So we knew this world already existed, and he saw some of the great things that had happened and how the process actually works. So that's why he was very strong in saying, let's look into a franchise. So that's part of it as well. Make sure that you're intentional with your journey. And if it's something that you want to do, put a plan in place. So we started having conversations around the move and saying, what types of business could we get into? Would we get into clothing and fashion? I was already in the jewelry side, which is more of like retail and fashion, but what would he be able to do with that in that world? We also looked into some of the food businesses. Then automotive came up. So we looked at different sectors. And that's the thing as you are on your journey as well, knowing that there may be different things that you could do and different investment amount, but which one is right for you is always a question that you're going to have to answer. What's the best fit for you? So we were also trying to figure that out for ourselves. Yes, I do help clients with that right now, but ultimately we started figuring out the process that I use now to help people become franchise owners. We did that for us. So we're looking at all our skills. What are we really good at? What are we interested in? What's the startup cost? And so we did all of that. So we narrowed it down. There's, food business that we like. We went and interviewed the owner just to find out what's the reality of running this business. Where are you finding customers? Are you making any money? So asking some of those hard questions, but necessary questions, because if you're in business for profit, yes, then you have to be making sure that you are asking relevant questions as well. So interview the people in the food business. We know what we weren't sure. We saw some signs of like that they were doing okay, but only a few of the franchisees were doing really well. So we passed on that. So we also looked at another automotive business. At the time, the business that we were looking at, we already had someone owned maybe 6 locations already. So it seems like they had, I would say, multiple unit, the territory rights, and that was not going to work. And we basically went to look at another business, and then we saw the Jiffy Lube, and we basically called them and set up an appointment, and they said yes, that we could come. So you'll notice in this story, there are many things that happened because of synchronicity. It happened because we weren't just sitting in our house. And I know technology is good in laptops and the internet, but we literally got out. And when we got out, we found the Jiffy Lube. We called them, asked if we could set up an appointment. They were nice people and they said yes. So when we went in for an interview, but before that, my husband was scheduled to actually fly out the next day, the day they wanted us to come in. And guess what? He changed his flight. He quick decision, change his flight so that we could go in and meet with them and book his flight for a later date. So again, business is not always going to be nice and perfect and convenient. We had to do it scrappy and make some quick decisions as well. Once we went in and met with one of the founders there, we asked about our story, what's our background, and just so found out as a teacher that his wife was also a teacher. And that is sometimes things just work out. And he said teachers are really great people. I do agree with that. And so, teachers being great people, we sat and interviewed, we went through a few things. And the next thing that happened was that he mentioned that there is a location that is in Calgary. Now, I live in Edmonton. For those of you who don't know where Edmonton is, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And Calgary is like 3 hours away driving at a minimum. That's on a good day. Good weather, perfect weather. If we're having snow or anything like that, it can go to 4 or 5 hours, right? So that's where the location was. And so you can imagine we are looking for something in our backyards that's right there. And he's telling us he has something, he might have something, but it's going to be all the way in Calgary. So what do you do about that? So we looked at the whole thing and we thought, you know what? It is better for us to be in the system, get started, and then we will figure it out. So we did not have a place to live in Calgary. We did not have anything like really figured. These were all conversations. But what they were testing was to find out, are you ready? And that was what Jim, the founder, said. People say they're ready. And then when the opportunities come, they are not actually ready. So that was really what he was testing, that, do you want business? And you say you want to be in business, but we have something, but it's not right where you are, right under your nose, and you're not ready to take it. So in that test, we actually said, okay. And he said, go take a look. He didn't say he was going to be our next in line or whatever. He just says, take a look. And that's what we did. So we packed up, drove all the way to Calgary, and went by the location, checked it out, drove around the city. We didn't go in the store, right? Because that would, really kind of, well, what is the word? I would say it would key off the tip off the employees that maybe the store was up for sale. So we were not supposed to do that. So we were going to make this trek and this drive purely just to see, right? And so once we were there, we drove around the city. We had a look. And we wanted to just see, to get an idea, what would our lives be like? What are all the facilities? What are all the things that are there? What is the neighborhood that the store is in? So sometimes when we're doing research, we can do our own local research, right? And the local research just means that you can go outside of a store that you like and see how many customers are going in. You can check to see the neighborhood where these stores are being built. So that's what we were doing. We were actually going in and we were just doing research. So from there, we did realize again that business is never going to be totally convenient to us. So we went back and we just basically had a phone call and said, you know what, we like what we're seeing and can we get more information? So this was just to move us along the process. So at the time, that was it. We left it there. We had some conversations, but it was not a definite because they were also evaluating us to see if we're a good fit. Who is going to run the business? How is my husband living in Florida going to run a business in Canada, right? So there are all these logistics that had to be worked out. And you know what? In life, you work them out because there's some people who want to have all the answers and exactly how things are going to go before they make a decision. There are the people, they want the degree before they go to university, right? They're just like, give me my PhD, but they didn't show up yet. They want the guarantee. So we did not have any sort of a guarantee on the process exactly how it's going to go. But we were just moving along slowly, figuring out what they needed from us, what we needed to do next. And that was basically it. So we continued looking at other opportunities and other brands, but we felt if, we could get into the Jiffy Lube, it would be a good fit and a good match for us. The founder, again, was very patient, very optimistic, and felt that we could make this work. So we did come up against a couple challenges, and one of the main one is that my husband was a U.S. citizen. I'm a Canadian citizen. How would this purchase work? And to make it happen, the investment I did the investment because as a Canadian citizen to speed things up and to make it work. So these are some of the logistics that you have to work out when you're buying companies, because that's what we're buying, an existing location. So we did say yes, we showed our hands that we are interested. Can we get some of the numbers, what the store is doing operationally, right? And what are the revenue? What's the profit? That location that we were going to invest in was not performing very well, but we still felt that it would be a great opportunity for us compared to what we were making what I was making as a teacher and what he was making working with the airline as an aircraft mechanic. So the numbers weren't great. So people often ask, if the numbers weren't the best, why would you take and buy a location that's underperforming? Well, because we know us. We could bet on us. We felt that if given the chance, we could really do something with this location. So fast forward, we did invest in that store in Calgary and we doubled the revenue in that location by the time we were ready to exit and sell that business. So sometimes you have to take a chance, you have to bet on yourself, and it's never going to be, just easy and convenient right behind you. So basically that's what we did. Now, I've jumped a little bit further quickly, but how did we finance? How did we get funding? How did we do all those things? We did not have like money ready to buy this location. And we didn't even know while we were having the conversation what would happen. But again, because it was a franchise, the team at the head office basically said to us, go to this person at the bank. They've dealt with so many of our franchises already. They know our success rate. They know how it works. And if have a conversation with them, it would be a lot easier. And we just followed the rule. We followed along and got there. They told us what we needed to have. We may have needed a deposit. Luckily, between both of us, we have been saving and we had some extra cash that we could put into the investment to make it happen. So we just had a certain portion. We didn't need to have the entire amount to buy the business. And buying a franchise, buying a business, well, I would say, similar to real estate, the house may be $1 million. You need 10 to 20% to be able to invest into that property. You don't need to have the full amount. If you do, great, you can do it that way. In our case, we wanted to use OPM, other people's money, which is the bank, and let the bank do the financing, let the business operate in a way that it would pay for our company. And I see so many people, even when I work with my clients, they come and they're a little bit nervous because they're like, well, I don't have all the money to buy the business. Well, most people don't, right? If you look around your neighborhood and where you live and you see people owning their companies, most of them have borrowed money to make that happen. So why not you? Don't put yourself through stresses and thinking everything has to be exactly perfect. But on a side note, the loans that we took out, the banks wanted us to pay that off in 5 or 6 years. We paid that off in half the time. So your company should be producing revenues to pay your employee, pay your bills, have some savings, and it shouldn't just be coming from you if you're worried about that. So that was part of what I wanted to talk about, because a lot of people worry about how they are going to finance their companies, and let the bank help you to buy your company. So now that we have invested in our first company, but how did that first company happen? I had to go through a lot of vetting, a lot of proof of income, proof of everything that I had. And we did all of that, still weren't approved. And my husband and I went off on a cruise because we're like, we're going to continue living our life. It is going to be September. I'm going to go back to teaching. He's going to go back to working with the airlines. But let's take a nice trip before we do that. And, while we're on this nice cruise, living it up, we got a call from the corporate head office, and they're saying, hey, the store is ready for you to buy and take over come September. And we looked at each other. I think we had certain minutes when you're on those cruise ships. Remember back in the day before cell phones were so good, they would only give you a certain number of minutes that you could actually call. And so I basically, when we got docked at one of the islands, we called their head office and they said to us, hey, guess what? You guys are approved for the store. And we're looking at you like, holy, did not have enough time, maybe a couple weeks, 2 to 3 weeks to actually make it happen. Again, we figured it out. Sometimes business is not going to be perfect. We just said, okay, sure, we'll take it. And my husband had to go back and take some sick leave first because he had some extra time, and then a leave of absence. And that's what we had to figure as we're learning how to open a business, how to take over, how to introduce ourselves to the staff that was already there, how to figure out how to use the machine. And I'm telling you, back to ground zero. So that's how it basically happened. When we got the call, we were living our best lives, traveling on a cruise ship. So that is sometimes how life actually works. So once we got that first location, as I mentioned, we doubled the revenue. We figured out how to lead a team, how to put systems. The systems were already there, but we had to put our own systems internally to make sure that our staff was showing up properly. Did they have the right uniform? Some of the guys were wearing runners. They're white and dirty. We're like, no, we need proper footwear. Like, we learned how to run a business. We learned about payroll, making sure people are working, they want to get paid. So from there, after the store we got approved, we had to find a place to live. I remember my husband and I, we were just driving around looking at different apartments because we needed a quick place to live. We found one place that we really liked, put a payment on it, drive away, a block down, something was much nicer. We had to be like, oh, so sorry. We really, really want this other place. The guy was nice enough to let us do that. So once we had a place to set up, I was still teaching full time. So on the weekends, I would go back to Edmonton, go and teach, jump on the bus to head back down because I didn't like driving in the winter time. And so those are some of the things that you do. Entrepreneurship is scrappy. It's not always wonderful and perfect. And if you're looking for guaranteed perfect life, this may not be for you. And sometimes I have to be honest with some people. Depending on if you want everything to be guaranteed and perfection and to get your exact salary you had before, you may not like it. And here is a newsflash. In the beginning of our business, my husband took a pay cut. Yes, he took a pay cut so that we could stabilize and build our company. And then after that, he could write his own checks and write whatever he wanted to pay himself. However, when you're building a company, if you're looking to just do a lateral move, Some people want to jump from mountaintop to mountaintop. It's like, I'm making 100,000 right now, and if I'm not making the exact 100,000, I can't leave my job. But what if you make 100,000 in your job, but which you're not really fully getting all of that because you're also paying, taxes and CPP and all the other things. You're probably from that making 70. But, what if you could become an entrepreneur, takes less while you build your company, but there's equity in your company. And when we've sold our company, we were able to make quite a bit from selling our companies as well as paying ourselves. So those are some of the things to think about. It's not going to always be mountaintop to mountaintop. And if you're scared of losing a bit of your pay and your income, then we have some money mindset work that you're going to need to do to really become an entrepreneur. So over since with the first location, we learned so much about becoming entrepreneurs, about people who rely on you and making sure that you're paying people. And we're so proud to say over the 16 years that we've owned our franchise, we have never missed payroll for our employees. And that we have to be really proud of. Like we're so proud of that, and we lead with such integrity and making sure, because we know there are many people's lives who depend on us. And when we look out in the parking lot, we see all our employees' cars parked. Employees are now building their own, buying houses, bringing their family into Canada. That was us. So there are people's lives who are tied to yours. And by you investing in a business, in a franchise, you are helping so many other people who basically rely on you. And at the time, of course, we did it for our own reason. We're not going to, pretend in the beginning we're the Mother Teresa and we're doing it for that. We weren't. It was just for us. We wanted to find a way to get out of jobs. We wanted to find a way to stop the long distance commute. But after you've achieved all of that, you realize, oh, there's something bigger to this. And the bigger part was about our employees and the people who we've helped to change their lives as well. When we see them buying cars, buying houses, helping their families, we knew, like, look at that. Our business, the decisions that we made have changed so many people's lives. Over the 16 years, we've owned 5 different Jiffy Lube locations. The first one was the scariest and the hardest. And we've become multi-unit franchise owners. We've become multi-location franchise owners, multi-provincial. So we own in Alberta, in British Columbia. And yes, the first one, as I mentioned, was the scariest. And the reason is when you've never done something before, you just don't know how it's going to go. We're entering into new world, new vocabulary, new experiences. So we had no idea what we were getting into. After the first location, the second location came a bit easier because they were seeing our success. I remember they sent a guy named Dennis on the way down to check out what were they doing? How are their sales so much higher? And from that, once we've proven ourselves, then we were able to qualify and get a second location, and then also like the next third location and so on. And so in franchising, at times people think you just become multi-unit owners automatically. In some brands, yes, you can. But specifically for this brand, they wanted to make sure that you could operate a business, you could run it properly. And once they could see that we were doing excellent, we were able to invest in other brands. It has even gotten to the point where we have been called when new locations come up to say, hey, there's a location here. Do you guys want it? So we sometimes get, I'm not should say the first right of refusal, but we're in the conversations before the other locations open. We already know what's coming down the pipeline, and they're asking us if we want to invest anymore. Over the years we've owned our business, we've done over 30 million in revenues through franchise ownership. And we are proud of that, those numbers. And it shows that, we are solid in this game and helping people now become their own boss and build their own franchise business. That's also the icing on the cake for us. So I would say, the journey has been really, really interesting. I would say there's been some scary times, of course, as an entrepreneur, when you're like, oh my gosh, payroll is massive and, the cars are down. What are we going to do? Again, never missed a payroll. The pandemic was a very challenging challenging time for us. I mean, that was when no one was really going to work, or the locations, some of the locations were closed. We were sometimes only seeing 2 to 3 cars a day from people that were in essential services that had to travel, maybe were out and about. So, imagine having a location going sometimes from 40 or 50 cars a day, and now you're going down to 3, 4 cars. That was, I would say, that was very, very scary. But again, we sort of knew we were going to be okay because we were part of a franchise system. We knew that, they were going to be looking out for us as well. Some of the expectations would be coming down. So I would say those were some of the scary times. Another scary time, I would say, when a brand new location opens up for you and you're starting with $0, that can also be very scary. When you buy an existing location that's already performing, some people call it resale, you have historical data to know how the location is doing, how the business is doing. With a new location, there's nothing there. It's just you and that first vehicle that comes in, and you're like, oh my gosh, we made one sale today. So those were also a little bit nerve wracking. With some people like the new locations because they're beautiful. The paint is fresh. You can smell the paint. Everything is untouched, right? You get to put in your own culture, hire your own people. You're not dealing with, existing staff like you do when you buy a resale location, right? People are already there. They have their own ways and their own methods of doing things. And, there are certain leaders there. With this, with a new location, it's just as scary. It's, of course, it's beautiful and the pictures and it's brilliant, but the fear is a little bit different too. So we've definitely had some tough times. And along the way as well, we've sold a couple of our locations because we've saw different opportunities in different places and wanted to diversify a bit. So that basically was how the whole Jiffy Lube story came about and why Jiffy Lube. But ultimately, we chose this brand because we wanted something that was recession proof. We wanted something that was a necessity where people are always going to be coming to get their oil change. We wanted something that we could also eventually sell. If you listen to the episode before this, part 1, one of my things in the direct sales world is I built a team of 500, and in the end of it, I had nothing to sell. We just had to walk away when the company wanted to close or decided to close. With this business, I felt like I wanted something that I could build, and if I was ready, when I'm ready to exit, I could sell it. So having sold a few of my locations, I know it is proven, and that's what I also love about franchising. So that is the story about how we chose Jiffy Lube, my husband and I. It has been quite a journey. We have learned so much about building a business, running a company, getting a company to do over 30 million is nothing to kind of sniff about. Like, there's some people, I mean, the stats are only 2% of women entrepreneurs would build their business to 7 figures in their lifetime. We've done it to 8 figures, right? So we are just really proud of what we have done, and we know it's possible for you too. So if you're listening to this episode and you're thinking, hey, franchising, I don't know about it, should I consider it? I would say, why not take a look? Definitely. I know it has been life changing for myself. It's helped me to become a franchise millionaire. And that's where we got the name for the show, the Become a Franchise Millionaire. And our mission is to basically change the face of franchising to help aspiring entrepreneurs become franchise millionaire. Let's do it. And I cannot wait for you to listen to our next episode. And I'd love to hear your feedback on this episode. What stood out for you? And please make sure you share it, pass it along, and we will talk to you again soon. Bye.